It's time for the Russ Belville Show's Cannabis Q&A with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. Dr. Earlywine is a professor of psychology at the State University of New York at Albany and a leading author and researcher on cannabinoids and health, who pins the Ask Dr. Mitch column for High Times magazine. Get your questions ready in our live chat or call in to 971-533-7111 now.
All right, welcome everybody. Half past the hour, and it's a Wednesday, and that means it's time to speak with newly elected normal board member Dr. Mitch Earlywine. How you doing, Dr. Mitch?
Woohoo! How about that?
That's pretty darn cool.
I'm pretty delighted.
Yeah. So you're part of the, who are the other new board members who were elected along with you?
Well, so we got Diane Fornbacher, who everyone knows and loves. Mm-hmm. And then I'm afraid the other folks are escaping me right now. I'll have to look it up.
Rick Cusick from High Times.
Rick Steves has been, a salient participant already.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the usual suspects. The guy from Weed Maps, whose name is
Justin Hartfield from Weed Maps, and
exactly,
and Rick Cusick
and
from High Times.
Two others I can't think of right now.
Rick Cusick from High Times.
You got it.
There we go. I think that's all judges. Did we get them all? Yes, we did get them all. We're all good. Okay. As always, when we start off these discussions, we let Dr. Mitch Earlywine set the table with the latest in cannabis studies, science, polls, all that kind of stuff. What's new in the news?
New data from the Annals of Epidemiology showing that, what a surprise, medical marijuana states don't have increases in teen use. In fact, in this data set, there was a drop of 0.5%, and also no oddball changes in attitudes about marijuana's perceived harmfulness. So anybody who thinks medical marijuana is a bad idea has less and less data to stand on.
There we go. And speaking of the data, I got a note from Paul Armentano, our friend with Normal, and he sent along new research from Hartman and Huestis. I don't know if I'm pronouncing Marilyn Huestis' name correctly, but Huestis perhaps.
That's it.
Yeah, there we go. Marilyn Huestis on the detection. She's one of these experts on the whole science of detecting cannabinoids in the blood and whether or not that's going to lead to impairment. And the money quote on this was her saying that there is no direct correlation between driving impairment and THC concentration. I wonder if you got to look at that and if you have any other gems to mine from it.
So I saw an abstract from a poster she did on the same idea and from that same data set. And in fact, what a surprise. People's variation in tolerance is so dramatic that trying to do things in nanograms per milliliter is just a bad idea. I've, jumped up and down before about how roadside sobriety tests are definitely the way to go because they detect, Benadryl or any other kind of impairment, not just cannabinoids. And we definitely all know folks who are regular medical users or just regular daily users who have tolerance that's so high that any level we would set would be ridiculous given their ability to drive after using. So I really hope that this can help buttress the argument for roadside sobriety tests and not anybody having to give up blood or urine.
Yeah, let's hope for that. And Dr. Mitch, there's another topic out there. I've seen it pop up in the local news around here in Oregon. Apparently, a story of a police being called to find a naked 19-year-old woman holding an infant in her arms and swinging a hammer with the other hand, all freaked out and hallucinating. And they're attributing it to this herb, this drug called kratom. And I'd never heard of the dang thing, but we talked about it last week, and a couple of our Canadian listeners informed us what it was. I looked it up. Have you heard much of this kratom, and do you have any information for us on it?
So both this one and Damiana were kind of making the rounds for a little while as potential intoxicants or just interesting recreational things. They have a long history, but we just don't have a ton of data on them. Obviously, this woman was in over her head on it, so I'm reluctant to say much from a single case, though, because she may have had a psychotic disorder before. She could have been, in the middle of some kind of manic episode. It's just too soon to say that this is always harmful or always bad, but obviously it was not a good time this time.
Yeah. How much of that is an effect in this reporting? We get these stories. A little while back, it was the face-eating zombies, right, on the Spice or whatever. We get these stories that are hyped up of people having these huge breaks with reality. It's always attributed to the fact that they're doing some drug, but how much of that is them doing some drug to deal with the fact that they've got such a huge break with reality?
Well, and I do feel like these chicken and egg issues never come up. The fact that some of these folks, when you look deep into their personal histories, had psychotic breaks before, or were at least schizotypal, had kind of a schizophrenia light style of interacting with the earth, is something that we ought to keep in mind anytime we see one of these. And as Bruce Merkin of MPP used to say, if it bleeds, it leads. We always get the dramatic part. We might not have heard of the hundreds and thousands of people who used it without any negative consequences.
Of course. All right, we're speaking with Dr. Mitch Earlywine here in our Cannabis Q&A. You can call in live at 971-533-7111 or drop your question into our chat room here on Ustream. Just type /login to create your account. And we've got a question here coming from LCAP in our chat room. Wants to know if there is a way to purify cannabis resin into something less harmful.
Not an efficient or simple way. And in fact, I mean, the resin that you're getting, just on the side of your pipe probably doesn't have a lot of psychoactive THC left in it anyway. So, I mean, not something I'd recommend without some pretty serious access to chemical equipment.
Yeah.
So, sorry, bad news.
Yeah, we just had another one of these, blowing up hash stories out here in Oregon. Some 22-year-old making butane hash in his house, and of course exploded, and he goes running down the street. I'm burned. So we're hearing more and more of that, and I keep wondering, in a legal scenario, isn't what they do in most pharmaceutical factories basically that, stripping from plants and other substances their essential oils and make them into pills?
Alas, only a small percentage now do that. We've come to the point now where almost at least the top 10 sellers are all pretty much synthetic.
Oh.
So it's just turning one chemical into another chemical. I'm afraid it's nowhere near as natural as it was even 60 years ago.
Wow. Okay. Well, certainly under legalization, we could have some sort of regulated industrial production of these things. It'd be a whole lot safer.
And in fact, I think the idea that we even need to move away from whole plant is certainly worth debating.
Ah, yes. Many rants on that subject. Normal Patriot in our chat room has a question. How hard would it be for us to self-monitor, like with a test strip? And I think it would saying like, with blood alcohol, there's that little chart they give you as far as when you're too drunk to drive, or there's all sorts of is there anything like that coming on the horizon for us consumers so that we can know if we're above 5 nanograms?
Well, so, I mean, if you want a kind of instantaneous behavioral measure that seems to co-vary with driving impairment, go ahead and stand on one foot, stick the other foot about 18 inches up in the air, hold your arms out, and see if you can hold it like that for about 30 seconds without tipping or swaying too badly, and that would certainly be a good marker as far as, just general motor skills are concerned. But I want to encourage folks to just say, hey, maybe tonight's not the night for me to drive anyway. Why don't I arrange things so that everybody comes to my house, or that I can walk to the place I want to go, or let's do public transit, or in a lot of towns, a cab might be $4 to $8. I can get an awful lot of places in Portland for $2.50,
Yes,
so
yes.
let's take advantage of that.
That's interesting you mentioned that. It seems odd to me that we're so frightened about how adults may or may not smoke pot and then drive, yet every bar I drive by has a parking lot. They basically are assuming someone's going to drive there for the purposes of drinking alcohol, and, well, we're going to give them at least a little bit of leeway in determining their own responsibility to get behind the wheel. Just seems like a strange double standard, isn't it?
Maybe we could extend the same courtesy to cannabis. I like that idea.
That'd be very nice. All right, we have a question from John Thomas who wants to know, I seem to find a potency variance in any given strain, from dispensary to dispensary, even from 1 month to the next. How can we get standardized effects for each strain?
Well, I do want to sort of play up the idea that, we're within a certain range here, and particularly because, if you're vaporizing, you can monitor your dose to some pretty precise inhalation sizes that you don't want to drive yourself too nuts. What we are seeing is folks who can grow indoors under really standardized conditions can replicate both THC and cannabidiol concentrations using the same strain in the same medium with almost identical lighting. But again, don't make too much of this. I feel like one vaporizer hit versus 1.5 is not something that you should spend too much time driving yourself crazy about.
Well, what I was going to say also was that he was saying dispensary to dispensary. A lot of times, even the same strain grown from the same seed or even off the same mother plant can have different concentrations based on the chemical contents that they use for their nutrients solutions, and also what kind of growing medium that they have. Also, the lights make a big difference. Whether it's indoor or outdoor makes a difference. These are all factors. So if you want to get a consistent, effect, I would just say try and get as large of a quantity as you can from a specific grow spot, from one specific source.
Yeah, and that also brings up the point that there are a lot of development of cannabinoid pharmaceuticals going on. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I think in some circumstances it will be nice to know that one spray of Sativex or one capsule of this is going to be exactly a certain CBD THC ratio, a certain potency, and so forth. We just shouldn't sacrifice our access to the whole plant in the meantime.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Want to remind everyone also, if you don't have time to get your question in here for Dr. Mitch Earlywine, you can always send it by email to 420research@gmail.com. That's 420research@gmail.com. And as we wind things up, Dr. Mitch, I'm just wondering here, now that you're on the NORML board, if you have any insight for us on the latest projects or what's happening with NORML.
Well, so we're looking into some novel ways to try to raise some cash. That's always, of course, a big standard. And then we definitely want to make sure we're in touch with the research literature. So some of my colleagues and I are preparing a paper for Albany Law Review. And then the Mid-Atlantic Regional Conference is coming up in Philadelphia on March 16th. I regret I won't be there, but I'll be at my daughter's bat mitzvah. Oh. And then if folks have wild ideas that they would love to see NORML do, by all means, don't hesitate to email me. I've seen some crazy ones, and I'd love to see some crazier ones.
All right. Well, that sounds promising. Very, very nice. Well, Dr. Mitch, thanks for joining us and sticking with the show as long as you have, and we'll continue to talk to you on our Wednesday shows. But next week, we got the day off because I'll be flying to Atlanta.
You enjoy it, and you guys have a great night.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Mitch.
Bye now.
When we come back, we honor the legacy of Steve Veteran here from 420radio.org's Cancer Forum. We'll be right back.